In the forbidden city of Beijing, Lee Cheolsu lay on a bed for the reincarnation ritual. A reincarnator from Earth, he controls the current emperor of the Great Ming Empire like a puppet, earning a reputation as the worst traitor and villain in history. Manipulating the empire's affairs at will, he had elevated the insignificant third princess to the throne. Yet, despite his power, he laughed. Suddenly, the empress burst in, tears streaming down her face as she pleaded with him to stop. "Is the union of yin and yang really that important to you?" she asked, holding his hands in desperation. Lee Cheolsu responded, "Please forgive me for leaving without serving you until the end. I've been obsessed with over 50 years because I've been a virgin from my previous life until now." He recalled his past. After being hit by a reincarnation truck while crossing the street, he found himself in a martial world, reincarnated as a 12-year-old, kidnapped by a slave trader. He remembered the terror of being bound and screaming as the man approached him with a pair of scissors. "I've tried everything to meet a famous doctor. I made the third insignificant princess into the emperor. I dove into martial arts and became the strongest in the imperial palace." The doctor told her, "Creating something from nothing is impossible, Your Majesty, unless he is reborn." I was shocked when all my plans failed. In the present moment, I decided to be reborn into a new body, 3 wives and 4 concubines, but union with peerless beauties. I told the guards to take her out, and she was crying, trying to stop me. I wondered, maybe because we grew up together, the emperor feels like a child or younger sibling to me. As she was leaving, a mysterious man asked me, "Can we start?" I looked down toward my private parts and ordered him to proceed. He used his magic, releasing a purple mist, and energy started gathering around me. I slowly opened my eyes, and an old man was calling me. I woke up, and he told me, "I'm glad you're safe." When I remembered him, I was shocked. With a disgusting smile, he said, "I found you collapsed near the official road and brought you here." It was the man who sold me to the palace 50 years ago. I was shocked when I saw him alive because he had been stabbed to death by bandits. I wondered, could it be that this isn't reincarnation but regression? I immediately started checking my manhood. I was relieved when I saw everything was okay with my sword. He asked me, "Kid, are you hurt anywhere?" I silently looked toward him, then maniacally smiled and said, "Sir, thank you for saving me. But for some reason, my wrist feels sore. Maybe I hit it on something. Could you take a look at it for me?" He helped me get up and told me, "Let me take a look. I have some good herbs at my house." He then asked, "Would you like to come with me?" I smiled, then grabbed his middle finger, saying, "Why? So you can kidnap me again and castrate me to sell me as an eunuch?" He was shocked and screamed. I ran forward and grabbed his hand in a lock position, smiling evilly and thinking, even though I've just regressed and don't have any internal energy, the martial arts techniques I learned in my previous life are still fresh in my mind. Then I grabbed his neck, and he screamed. I used all my power and killed him on the spot. He fell to the ground, dead. I spat on his face, thinking, it took me 50 years to get to this point because I was a castrated individual. I stood there silently, then clenched my fist and raised it up, shouting, "Now, I will live for sex." After exacting revenge on the slave trader a couple of months later, I was walking through a snowy mountain while shouting. I explained, "I am currently climbing Mount Gongdong in Gansu province. I felt like I could collapse at any moment, but for the sake of the sexual pleasure I've longed for my entire life, this kind of pain is nothing." Blushing, I thought, is there another world as profound as the realm? If it were only about physical pleasure, I could just earn some money and visit a brothel. I can't waste my precious virginity on low-quality experiences. I'm aiming to share real love with peerless beauties, a love where we share our hearts, exchange both physical and mental pleasure equally, and bring each other true satisfaction. I was pondering and thinking, this is the I seek, the ultimate path of passion. To achieve this dream, I need wealth and fame. I need to become a hero of the martial world. I scratched my chin and said, originally, I prepared all sorts of elixirs and martial arts manuals in my tomb for my reincarnation, but since I've regressed, that's not happening anymore. It's a pity, but it's not the worst thing. Remembering my past life, I thought of the Eastern Bureau and the Western Bureau. As someone who served as the head of the Empire's top intelligence agencies, I can see the next 50 years as clearly as the palm of my hand. With a confident expression, I said, if I train in martial arts and use my future knowledge, stirring up the martial world shouldn't be too hard. With an evil expression, I thought, becoming a renowned hero is not far off. Suddenly, I noticed my habit of laughing as I did when I was a eunuch. No, I have to fix that. I approached a collapsing sect and thought, Harem King, Lee Cheolsu. The grand finale will begin here at Gongdong sect. Confidently clasping my hands together, I shouted. Is anyone there? Confused, a man stood up, exclaiming, "Is this the voice of a child?" He ran forward, saying, "Could it be someone climbing Mount Gongdong in this bitter cold?" I gathered air in my mouth and shouted, "I am Lee Cheolsu. I lost my parents to bandits and have only dreamed of growing stronger. Please accept me as a disciple of the Gongdong sect." I explained, the Gongdong sect is a martial arts sect rooted in Taoism, which integrates Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoist martial arts. Renowned for its ruthless combat techniques, it is specifically designed to combat the evil forces in the martial world. To the untrained eye, they might be confused with demonic sects or heretics, but their toughness is second to none. As the sect leader landed before me, I covered my face from the shockwave they created. One of them said, "Climbing Mount Gongdong in this winter, and alone at that. Do you have no regard for your life?" With an excited expression, I replied, "If it means I can join the Gongdong sect, nothing else matters. Please accept me as your disciple." He thought for a moment, then said, "Show me your arms and hands." I walked forward and replied, "Yes." He started examining my head and thought, the natural energy flowing through his body is expelling impurities. Did he use the tonal breathing method while climbing the mountain? He told me, the tonal breathing method is a mental technique that lays the foundation for energy accumulation and strengthens the dantian. Learning that and climbing the mountain means you're not without talent. You have a good understanding of the basics of martial arts. Did your parents teach you? I replied, "Yes, that's correct." With an evil grin, I thought, honestly, I learned it because long practice helps with vitality. He said, "Very well. I am John Yang, the head of the Gongdong sect. Normally, there are several steps to joining, but you seem to have the potential, so I'll allow you to join." I was overjoyed when he told me to come inside. Excitedly, I thought, it's going according to plan. The Gongdong sect is on the verge of collapse, so they have no reason to refuse a new disciple. My butt was red, and I added, "But I can't let my guard down. I'll strengthen my vitality with Kegel exercises in my free time." But this place is in worse shape than I thought. There aren't many buildings in good condition. I looked all around the place and thought I knew that the Gongdong sect, which once held a seat among the 9 great sects, suffered a major blow 50 years ago in the Great War between the righteous and the demonic. Seeing it for myself really gives me an understanding. He told me, "Before we get into the formal rules, I have someone to introduce, your senior disciple and the head disciple of our sect." I agreed with him. With an evil grin, I thought, the worse condition the Gongdong sect is in, the better for me. The more I can fully invest in it before the sword St. Eugene Y rises. We were standing before a house when John Yang called out, "Gene Y." He then said, "This is your junior disciple from today, Lee Cheolsu." For some time, nothing happened, and then suddenly a strong blizzard started coming toward me, and I covered my face from it. Someone landed before us, and I was shocked. I didn't know, guys, if she is a girl or a boy, but I think she is a girl. Whatever, let's continue our story. She said, "Nice to meet you, junior disciple. My name is Eugene Y." I was shocked and wondered, why is he so handsome? I was confused, thinking, in my past life, his portrait wasn't much, and he always wore a bamboo hat, so I thought the rumors of women in the martial world fighting over Eugene Y were just nonsense. In that case, my future, worried. She asked, "You don't look well. Are you feeling sick?" I shouted, "No, I'm fine." Grabbing my hand, she replied, "That's a relief. There's no need to be formal. Let's get along like brothers from now on." Gritting my teeth with jealousy, I thought, please let him be only 3 centimeters. Grabbing my hand tightly, she said, "Then, shall we go?" I asked, "Where?" Excitedly, she said, "There are many places I want to show you." Confused, I felt like a pathetic loser before her. She ran from there, grabbing my hand, and I started screaming. Looking toward her, I thought, I don't want to touch a man. I snatched my hand from her grip. She looked confused. She seemed hurt by my words, and I noticed it. Confused, she scratched her head and apologized, saying, "Were you startled? It's my first time having a junior, so I might have gotten too excited." I bowed down and said, "No, senior, I apologize for overreacting. I was thinking." Stay calm, Lee Cheolsu. There's no backing out of the Gongdong sect now. For the future, building a good relationship with Eugene Y is important. I apologize for my rudeness. She looked at me silently, confused. Somewhere, John Yang was saying, the winter winds are harsh at times, but it seems Gongdong's winter is slowly coming to an end. I hope Cheolsu and Gene Y grow close soon. He thought, it was about 10 years ago when I found Gene Y, an orphan. After discovering her genius, I dedicated myself fully to raising her. She is the only hope for restoring the Gongdong sect. Soon, Jinwei will enter the martial world and face many men. By interacting with Cheolsu, someone her own age, she must learn how to conceal the fact that she's disguising herself as a man. I was lying in bed, thinking, tomorrow is a memorable day for me, the grand first day at the sect. It's already been 2 hours, and I'm still having trouble sleeping. I was angry and thought, it's all because of that guy, Jinwei. Half a day ago, I bowed and said, thank you for your guidance and care. She replied, I'm thankful as well. With a blushing face, she said, I am sorry for startling you so many times. Our old reputation has faded, and this place has turned into a mess, but I still wish to introduce it to you. She explained, even after the brutal massacre 50 years ago, Hyeonchan Palace, where the sect master lived, and Changgun Hall, where the disciples resided, still remain. She smiled and added, the Gongdong sect hasn't died yet. I want you to see this as well. I was silently listening, thinking, 50 years ago, the great war between the righteous and demonic sects began with the destruction of the Gongdong sect. At that time, no one expected the demonic cult to overtake the Kunlun sect and strike the strongest sect, the Gongdong sect, first. Her intentions in telling me the history of this place are something I can't grasp. I took a long sigh and replied, all right, please, just don't approach me suddenly like you did before. I'm a bit shy, worried. She bowed her head and replied, yes. I was confused, looking toward her and thinking, goodness, she seems quite sullen. I don't think I should press this matter any further. I stepped forward, saying, everyone makes mistakes. Don't be so discouraged. If you wish to share the history of the sect, I will listen. She became very happy. I explained, so far, everything was going well. When it comes to appeasing a boy my age, all I have to do is tell him what he wants to hear. However, there was one thing I overlooked. Suddenly, she hugged me and said, well then, let's go. I was very angry, thinking, that guy, does he really think we're going to start by putting our arms around each other's shoulders? Then I screamed loudly, and she nervously apologized. In the present moment, I threw a brick towards the wall and shouted, whether it's a shoulder embrace or a hug, I'm only willing to share that with beauties. I was very angry, saying, my 50 years of chastity nearly slipped away in an instant. I thought, just who is that guy? A rare prodigy born in the Gongdong sect, a genius among geniuses. Even if women caused chaos for him, that punk could effortlessly rebuild the sect. I shouted, someone born with the skills, charm, and looks. I grabbed the blanket tightly, saying, why does he treat women like they're nothing? They said it's because he valued his morals over human desires. But now I see the truth for myself. I was sweating from nervousness, thinking, Jinwei is clearly gay. I've seen this before, even back when I was a eunuch. Despite being castrated, they still had a behind. There were guys who took advantage of such desires. But I'm not gay. I looked towards my private place and said, what are you doing? I'm starting to want to use it. Damn it. I was worried, thinking, for some reason, my little guy isn't looking too good today. Kegel exercises alone are not enough. Is it time to combine them with some serious PE exercises? I raised my head, saying, Jinwei, I'm sorry, but I'm destined to become the king of stamina. There's no way I'm giving you my ass. I put my hand in my pants and was screaming in my mind from the pleasure. In the night sky, somewhere, Jinwei was binding her chest and saying, so frustrating. Why am I like this? She blushed, saying, I can't believe I was rude to the new disciple who just arrived today. Not once, but twice. She was disappointed in herself and said, I was so excited about gaining a new family member that I got carried away, more than usual. I should set a better example as his senior. Then she remembered me saying, if you wish to share the history of the sect, I will listen. She was blushing while wearing her clothes and said, it must have been difficult for him. Yet he still considered my feelings and said something kind. Nervously, she thought, I want to get closer to him. Is this what it feels like to have a brother? She smiled and said, next time, I hope we can get closer, maybe even put an arm around each other's shoulders. In the morning, I finished cleaning the house and said, man, I expected this, but they're seriously dirt poor. I'm surprised the kitchen is still standing. I was annoyed and thought, well, what am I even supposed to do right now? To become a great hero, rise to fame, and get wives. I've got to start strong and work hard from the very beginning. My eyes were glowing, and I exclaimed, now that it's come to this, I'm going to make the most of every single minute, whether it's washing rice or cutting vegetables. My current main task is to pay homage to gynecologist Professor Arnold Kegel. Suddenly, Jinwei appeared and asked, what are you doing in the kitchen? I was startled by her and screamed loudly. Shyly, I replied, hello, senior brother. She walked toward me, saying, did you prepare your breakfast? I came here just in case. I nervously replied, yes, this is something the youngest should handle after all. She smiled and said, seriously, I've never encountered a guy as nimble and quick-witted as you. Isn't it admirable? I nervously replied, yes, and thought, making a face like that amidst all this, he's so freaking handsome. If only I had half of his looks, I wouldn't have had to go through so much trouble. I was scratching my head and said, I guess I matured early after enduring the hardship of losing my parents at a young age. I apologize if my solo activities have been disruptive. Worriedly, she replied, no, I was being serious. I am an orphan like you too. I just felt like we're in the same boat. I meant to say that your maturity is commendable. I wondered, why has that kid been apologizing so much since yesterday? Is he trying to prove he has a genuine personality? I replied, yes. She told me, I will help you. I have some experience with preparing vegetables too. Shocked, I shouted, yes. She added, it's just something I used to do anyways. I can't let you do all the work while I stand by. I thought, this guy is really considerate. Originally, the sword Saint Eugene Y had a junior sister, not a brother of beauty who will one day be known as White Peach Blossom, but that's in the future. For now, it's just the two of us brothers. From this perspective, I can afford to have a little fun. I said, senior brother, if you want to help, wait here. I'll fetch some fresh water to wash the vegetables. She replied, got it. I took the water from the tap and thought, I have no interest in befriending Eugene Y. What I want is solely the value of his name, which will become famous in the distant future. I will seduce every woman I can in his name, enchanting them to fall for me. Suddenly, the shelf broke, and Gene Y noticed it, shouting, watch out, the pen was going to fall on me. And I closed my eyes. She was grabbing my head worriedly, asking, are you okay? She was very close to me, and I nervously replied, yes. She was awkwardly holding me, and I was blushing while thinking, what a beautiful rosy future lies before us. She smiled at me and said, you're lighter than you look. I thought, I just need to protect my ass. I smelled the scent of wildflowers around her, and then suddenly noticed her grabbing my hand and waist as if I were a girl. Startled, I screamed loudly, were you groping me? She quickly apologized. I definitely wasn't trying to do that. Please don't get me wrong. Angrily, I shouted, what are you doing? Don't blush. It'll just make things even weirder. Blushing and worried, she tried to calm me down, saying, okay, I'll prepare the meal. You should go rest. You were really startled. With an angry face, I thought, is this an attempt to assassinate me? How can a senior brother be like this? If Master sees this, he'll definitely grab me by the scruff of my neck and say that the order of the sect has collapsed. She was blushing and confused, trying to calm me down while I was angry and worried. I then started picking up the utensils from the ground and said, junior brother, you don't have to do such menial tasks. From now on, I, the youngest, will be in charge of such things. She scratched her head nervously and replied, okay, then. Looking down and blushing, she picked up a bowl from the ground. She asked, is it still okay if I help you? I looked at her and replied, that's fine. 2 months later, Gongdong Sect Banquet Hall. Standing near a broken house, John Yang asked, what do you think the true energy of martial arts is? He explained, some say that it's your internal energy, so they take all kinds of elixirs and medicines. Others believe it's your external energy, so they swing their fists all day. I was standing there in a martial arts pose, training, when he told me, however, true energy comes from the perfect balance between internal and external energies within you. That's martial arts at its peak. So, you should never resort to trickery when training. Got it? I shouted back, yes, master. He left, saying, all right then, I'm going to see your senior brother. Don't move a single inch, I replied, yes, and struggled to maintain my position, trembling and sweating. I thought, even if you hadn't mentioned it, I still wouldn't have any intention of using trickery. Imagining myself with a beauty, I thought excelling physically means having excellent vitality. What's the point of being big in just one place, you scrawny little thing? I confidently added, if it's for the sake of my true goal, then all the suffering is worth it. Sweat dripped from my body as I thought, today's training isn't too bad. Am I starting to see the results of the 2 months of training? Imagining a bald bodybuilder in my head, I wondered, is this the feeling of accomplishment that fitness crazy people get when they increase the weight of their dumbbells? When I was a eunuch, no matter how much I trained my external energy, I could never shake off that androgynous feeling. Just because of that, I was prevented from reaching ultimate success. If not for that quack doctor's ridiculous transformation remedy, I wouldn't have exploited my innocent subordinates or caused environmental destruction in the name of gathering elixirs. Angrily, I thought, the more I think about my past life, the more upset I get. Just wait and see, because in this life, I'm going to be a true alpha male. Jean Y landed before me, calling my name, Junior Brother. I asked, Senior Brother, why are you? She smiled and replied, Master said it's time to finish training, so I'm here to pick you up. Surprised, I exclaimed, it's already time? I thought, it's not enough. I have to complete this physique as soon as possible, and time is passing too quickly. She noticed I was deep in thought and looked at me, confused. Late at night, Gongdong Mountain, I landed on the ground, thinking, isn't it just a matter of secretly making up for what I'm lacking? I prepared myself to do more training and muttered, I have to obtain proper cardiovascular endurance to ensure I don't get tired easily. Stretching my arms, I thought, but I'm worried about Master. He planned the training schedule in a way that wouldn't injure this young body. If he finds out I'm doing extra training, he will stop me right away. I ran forward, thinking, but I can't give up on training at night. I can't be the king of vitality with just simple training. Jean Y was spying on me from a tree while I said, then let's run hard today. She was looking at me strangely, and I noticed it. Suddenly, my foot slipped on a rock, and I screamed as I rolled down to the ground. I was confused and asked her, Senior Brother, why are you here? With a stern face, she replied, I was wondering what you were doing sneaking out of Chongdungak these days. As expected, extra training. She told me, Master said that training beyond your limits is harmful. I can't just sit back and watch you push yourself with reckless training. I thought, what on earth? Am I going to get caught here? If I had even 1 year's worth of internal energy, I would have felt her presence approaching. With a horrified expression, I added, if I leave her be, she'll report this to Master right away. If I don't train at night, my endurance will decline. I clenched my teeth tightly, thinking, this will reduce the blood supply I can send to the corpora cavernosa. In conclusion, this is a potential loss of vitality. Getting up from the ground, I replied, I'm sorry for making you worry, but there is a reason for my extra training. She was confused, so I explained, Senior Brother and I are different. Unlike Senior Brother, who learns 100 things when taught just one, I am a dullard who forgets one for every one I learn. Clenching my fist tightly, I added, I hate falling behind. I don't want to be kicked out and have to wander the streets. I was crying as I said, if I don't practice harder, I won't be able to reach your level. I hate this reality where I can't even reach Senior Brother's toes. She was shocked. Eugene Lee, have you ever heard of the phrase, the one who cries first will survive? You're a righteous person, so will you still report this to Master after hearing this? She was silent, looking down, sad. I thought, I'm almost there. I just have to squeeze out more tears. While crying, I said, I don't want to get kicked out. Suddenly, she hugged me and said, I didn't know you had such worries. I'm sorry, Junior Brother. I didn't even know. When I noticed that I had started screaming, she assumed I was crying, so she hugged me tightly and said, it's okay. Don't cry. I angrily thought, let go of me, you crazy fool. Are you obsessed with holding me? This can't be happening. How could you take my first hug? I had already decided that my first hug would be with a beautiful woman. In the moonlight, she was hugging me, and I thought, so I lost my innocence of 50 years to this Senior Brother. Suddenly, I became confused and noticed that her chest was soft. Jean Y was remembering her past when she was called a monster, and everyone pointed their fingers at her. She looked at them with sorrowful eyes when suddenly someone offered her rice balls, saying, there's no need to listen to those who slander you. It was John Yang, and he added, you're just another human standing under the same sky. Anything you lack, you can learn. He knelt on his knees and asked, won't you follow me? In the present, she said, Cheolsu, our master isn't the type to cast you out just because your martial skills are lacking. She further added, now that you've joined our sect, no matter who you are, you're part of our family, as well as my lifelong fellow student. She looked directly at my face and told me, so, it's okay if you're struggling. You can always rely on me, like you're doing now. I'll always stand by your side and support you. She smiled at me and asked, how about it? Feel better now? I looked at her, snot dripping from my nose, and thought, I am currently feeling sympathy for my senior for the first time since I joined the sect. She was confused, looking at my face, while I was thinking, not only is he able to master all martial arts harmoniously, but the prodigy, Eugene Lee, can also replicate any martial art he has seen just once. With a strange expression, I thought, so, it's actually an abundance syndrome. I know all about the abundance syndrome. I had the same symptoms in my past life. I further added, of course, if he were a woman, I might think of this as a breast, but the Eastern and Western chambers, which have a 99% accuracy, have already concluded that Eugene Lee is a man, so there's no chance that he's a woman. The next morning, John Yang said, "As of today, I will conclude the external martial arts training we've been doing. You've worked really hard up until now." I listened as he continued, "Your foundation in strength and bone structure has been sufficiently developed, so let's reduce the external training and start working on your internal martial arts." Jean Y excitedly congratulated me while I was thinking, what's wrong with him? I'm happy that we're starting to train my internal martial arts, but, angrily, I added, I can't stand it because of Eugene Lee. Even when I'm making breakfast, he tries to help unnecessarily. John Yang asked, "You don't look too happy." I quickly replied, "No," and thought, let's not think about unnecessary things. Right now, I have issues more important than Eugene Lee. I thanked my master and informed him, but I don't want to reduce my external martial arts training. He was confused, and I was thinking, you're not wrong, master. Most who begin training their internal martial arts only practice external martial arts enough to maintain their physical condition. The rest focus their efforts on internal martial arts, swordsmanship, footwork, and other techniques. But I can't do that. Training my external martial arts is the ultimate way to achieve the physical beauty that will capture a woman's heart. I angrily thought, no matter how many times I put my ambiguous face out there, it won't change the fact that I'm still worse than Eugene Lee. He told me, "You don't want to reduce your external training? I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on that." I replied, "Unlike senior GIJN, I am quite dull. I believe that in order for me to assist my senior and help rebuild the sect, I need to put in efforts different from others, master." I thought, it may seem inefficient, but even after I start to train my internal martial arts, external training won't become entirely pointless. Even with the same sword technique, there is definitely a difference when wielding it with superior strength compared to your opponent, even if it's subtle. That subtle difference will give value to the sweat I've shed. In the end, it blossoms into remarkable skills that will determine my class in the world of martial arts. I smiled and confidently thought, please allow it, master. I am confident that I can put in the necessary effort. John Yang wondered, is that gaze truly one of a child? Because I cannot be like others. I work hard to put in unique efforts. Cheolsu has already recognized his own talent. Are you aware that you are a prodigy? He thought. Once, our sect had the expertise to nurture extraordinary talents like GIJN into true masters. But now, everything has turned to ashes and disappeared. That's why Cheolsu's words, while wrong by the general standards of the martial world, are correct when it comes to the rebuilding of our fallen sect. He gave me a paper, saying, it contains the notes for the foundational internal martial art, the So Yang Simbeep. As I opened the letter, I looked at the paper and thought, what's this? Was I not granted permission to continue external training? In that case, it feels a bit awkward to continue training in secret, master. He told me, the martial world can be merciless to those without talent. However, to those who dare to challenge, every path is open. He looked at me and added, I will permit you to continue your additional external training. Furthermore, I will now teach you the minor yang internal art, so memorize the notes for the internal martial art that I wrote down. I was very excited and replied, yes. In the bright sunlight, I sat down in a meditation position, and John Yang said to me, I will begin the Jin Ji Duan. Are you ready? I closed my eyes and replied, yes. Jin Y was nervously watching me. John Yang placed his hand on my back and said, I will inject internal energy into your body and guide the chi according to the notes. Make sure to remember this path well. I thought, a warm energy is swirling around my solar plexus. This is a sensation I've never felt, even in my past life. It's not the biting cold of winter's breath, but a warm temperature that envelopes my entire body. Is this what it feels like for sunlight to flow through my veins? Light was emanating from his hands as John Yang transferred his energy into me, and I wondered, this is Yang Qi. I looked toward him, and he told me, congratulations on beginning your internal martial arts training, Cheolsu. I examined my body and thought, I am no longer a mere servant. I was smiling and thinking, at this moment, I have truly been reborn, master. I was rejoicing on the ground, and Jin Y was looking at me and smiling. Sometime later, as night fell, John Yang and Jin Y were having dinner. John Yang asked, what does that mean? Are you saying you want to continue your external training? Jin Y, she replied, yes. As a senior, I want to lead my fellow junior brother. Holding a cup in his hands, he said, it seems you've learned how to build camaraderie as well. Then he brought the cup closer to his face and added, go ahead and do as you wish. For you, Jin Y, everything is a learning experience. Sometime later, he looked through the window and said, Both Cheolsu and Jinwei are still young, yet they are so sincere about rebuilding the sect and martial arts. I can finally fulfill the wishes of the master. Somewhere, several deer lay dead on the ground in a particular cave, while a bloody three-eyed snake crawled forward. Somewhere in a village, an old man was shouting because his barn was messed up, and all the goats he was raising had disappeared. He was going to sell them at the market today. Then he fainted on the spot from the shock. In the house, the old man was lying down on a bed, saying, "I was planning to donate the money from selling the goats to the sect." Tears were dripping from his eyes as he said, "I may be poor, but I wanted to contribute something to the sect. My lifelong dream, which I've worked so hard to achieve, vanished in an instant." The little boy shouted, "Why are you talking about making a donation in this situation? Why are you going this far for that sect? It's completely fallen apart now." He ran from there, and his mother said, "This kid is being so rude." The old man said, "Let it be, daughter. He must be upset because I feel unwell. I must look pathetic to Youngsik. That child doesn't know what the sect used to be like. The sect truly was amazing before its decline. The #1 sect in Gansu was the place that planted hopes and dreams in me when I was just an ordinary child." He added, "Perhaps he is right. After the invasion of the demonic sect, all the teachings of the Gongdong sect must have been forgotten. The beautiful Gongdong sect from back then can never return." In the sect, while I was practicing my martial arts, I was smiling and thinking, "I can feel it. The yang qi has properly settled in my lower dantian. It feels awkward when I try to practice the minor yang technique, but I can't quite figure out why. Is it because I achieved mastery in the yin-based technique, sunflower scripture, in my past life?" I scratched my chin and said, "The story of the martial arts of the Gong sect that I heard from my master yesterday didn't seem strange at all. John Yang was teaching me, the symbol that represents our sect is the yin-yang. It symbolizes the teaching of my ancestors. Yin-yang transformation refers to water flowing upward and fire burning downward. In other words, it is about reversing yin and yang to achieve the ultimate life. That's why ignorant people disdain our sect's martial arts, saying it resembles the dark arts that violate the natural order. But we do not use martial arts like the demonic sects. We only aim to eradicate the demonic sect's roots. So, remember this difference and don't be swayed by their whispers." I clenched my fist and thought, well, anyway, I'm glad I joined the joint sect. The martial arts of a true man who can tackle anything head-on. This toughness is truly the most fitting skill for the challenges of the world. As I was walking forward, I heard a sound from the sect gate, a little boy shouting, "Please, Gong sect, help my grandfather." He was crying and screaming, saying, "If this really is the #1 sect in Gansu that practices righteousness and justice, you should be able to help my grandfather, who has supported you his whole life." Jinwei called me junior brother and said, "Did you just hear that sound?" I replied, "Yes, it seems like someone is asking for help. Of all times, he just had to arrive while the master is briefly away." Visibly worried, she said, "I don't know what the issue is, but I think we should go check it out." We walked down to the sect gate to meet him and asked, "You want me to catch the criminal who broke into your barn and stole your livestock?" Confused, he replied, "Yes." I looked at him and said, "That's strange. Usually, thefts that occur in residential areas are reported to the authorities, aren't they?" With tearful eyes, he explained, "It just didn't seem like something a person could do. No matter how desperate they are, it doesn't make sense for them to cause such severe damage to the barn. My grandfather has loved the Gongdong sect for a long time, and he raised the goats just to contribute even a little bit to the struggling sect. He discovered the broken barn while checking on the goats he wanted to sell at the market. He was trembling and said, 'I know it sounds shameless to ask for help without even a penny to spare, but can you help him recover, especially considering how my grandfather has supported the Gongdong sect his whole life?' I thought for a while and said, 'Still, it's commendable that a young child has come all the way here. Shall we at least take a look?' Sometime later, he showed us his barn. Looking toward it, I thought, the hillside where the barn is located connects to the joint mountain. There must have been many attacks from wild animals around here, even under normal circumstances. Then I noticed it looked just like a trail a snake would leave. I further thought, if it's this size, it must be a legendary creature. Could it be that a large snake came down here in search of prey?" I asked, "Senior brother, have there been any hidden legends or sightings about a giant snake in Gongdong Mountain?" She replied, "No. I haven't heard anything like that. If there were a dangerous legendary creature in Gongdong Mountain, the master would have dealt with it first. I nervously thought, since Gongdong Mountain is a sacred site of Taoism, it's a famous mountain, and because of the spiritual energy, even small creatures could potentially mutate. If this is the first time he's heard about it, that means it hasn't been active for long. Suddenly, I grinned and thought, if I eat a snake of this size, I'll be able to gain even more energy. I said to her, well, it's us after all. She asked me, is it really okay to do this without telling the master? I smiled at her and replied, it could just be a big fuss over nothing. It's not right to refuse a request for help from a resident of Gongdong Mountain. She was imagining the little boy crying, and I told her, if we turn our backs on such a devoted child, it would only fuel the misunderstanding that we are a righteous sect. She nodded and said, I understand. If it really is a legendary creature, we should deal with it before it causes even more damage. When the little boy heard that, he was overjoyed with happiness. She picked up the little boy, and I said, since the barn was destroyed so severely, there should be some traces left. Let's send the child back and tidy up the area while we look for clues. She told me, all right, I'll take him back. Sometime later, in the forest, I exclaimed, I found something, Senior. There was a large trail left by a snake. I told her, it seems like the legendary creature killed the livestock and fled down this path. We started running, and I shouted, let's hurry and chase after it. As we ran and jumped through the trees one by one, she called me, Junior Brother, and asked, is it really okay to act without telling the master? I replied, aren't we helping the people? And thought, you really are the epitome of a righteous sect, always so rigid. I landed on a branch and told her, but right now, it'd be better if we carefully examined the traces. If we miss something, we could end up getting lost ourselves. I was shocked when I realized the traces had suddenly stopped here. She shouted, Junior Brother, it's dangerous. When I looked up, there was a snake with its mouth open, launching toward me and biting my body. She was worried and called my name, Junior Brother. In this moment of crisis, the records of the future flashed through my mind. Before venturing into the martial world, the swordsman Eugene Lee accidentally got lost in Gongdong Mountain while wandering and encountered the legendary Guangqing Danxue. There, he discovered part of the ancient martial arts left by his ancestors in a treasure trove and was said to have consumed an elixir. For a small creature to transform into a legendary one, it must absorb a vast amount of spiritual energy. If there's a place in Gongdong Mountain where such energy exists, wouldn't it be there? I found myself grabbing its fangs, smiling, and thinking, if I can get through this crisis, not only will I enhance my vitality, but I might also recover the martial arts techniques of the Gongdong sect. She was calling my name while the snake dragged me along. I was gripping the snake's fangs as Jin Wei ran toward me, thinking, he's holding on even though he's poisoned. If I let this go on any further, his life will be in danger. I must cut off its torso first. She slashed her sword at the snake and was shocked when she saw that her blade did nothing to its scales. The snake attacked her with its tail, and she was thrown aside, crashing into a tree. I looked toward her, thinking, what are you doing just standing there, Eugene Lee? Even if unforeseen circumstances arise, you must not panic. I grabbed a nearby stick and thrust it directly into the snake's eye. It let out a horrific hiss and began writhing in pain. Using that moment, I leaped away from its tightening coils, barely escaping its clutch. But as I landed, a sharp pain shot through my shoulder, making me wince. She landed beside me, her eyes wide with concern. Junior Brother, are you okay? She asked urgently. I'm fine for now, I replied through gritted teeth, but we need to focus on the battle ahead. Looking toward the snake, I informed her, we've fallen right into its trap. I noticed that you tried to cut its torso earlier, but its scales are too tough. Holding her sword in her hand, she replied, yes, they were tougher than I expected. Visibly exhausted, she explained, it looks like we need to decapitate it in one blow, but I can't keep up with its attack speed. I can't even find an opening to exploit. What should we do now? The venom was taking effect on my body, and I thought, the current Eugene Lee is not that strong yet, so she'll have a hard time dealing with an enemy like this. I looked towards her, thinking, I have skills from my past life, so I can still fight even though I'm poisoned. However, it's over for us if the immature Eugene Lee gets herself poisoned. I must create an opening. I took off my shirt and told her, Senior Brother, I will give you a signal. When I do, maximize your sword's destructive power using the So-Yang technique. With a surprised expression, she said, how can you do anything in your condition? I started running toward the monster and told her, there's no time to hesitate. The snake opened its mouth, and I ran toward it, holding a cloth in my hand while saying, no matter how formidable the demon is. I dodged its bite and shouted, Its right side is still full of weaknesses. I wrapped the cloth around its mouth, grabbed it tightly, and shouted, "Now, senior brother." She lunged forward, screamed loudly, and then sliced the monster into 2 pieces. She landed, exhausted, and said, as expected, the neck was its weak spot. She thought, no way. Did he know this beforehand? Is that why he led me toward its neck? She noticed me lying on the ground and started running towards me, screaming my name. I was blushing, thinking, I feel like I'm burning up. They say the snake's poison holds strong yang energy. I guess the old herbalists weren't wrong, but rather, this is good. While she was holding me in her arms, I was thinking, with my superior energy control technique, I can just expel the poison's toxin and absorb only the yang energy. She was crying, and I thought, Eugene Lee, don't worry too much about me. I'm going to be fine soon. She was calling my name and shouting, please wake up. With a horrified expression, she said, what should I do? You ended up like this because of me. You pushed yourself too hard to create an opening for me. Even though you were poisoned, hugging me tightly, she thought, I have to save him. I want to save him. She laid me down on the ground and began sucking the blood from my neck. When I realized what she was doing, I was shocked. As she sucked the blood from my body, I started screaming loudly, spitting out the blood. She thought, is the poison already numbing his tongue? I lay trembling on the ground, angry and cursing her under my breath. Blushing, she thought, the pain must be too much. I need to get the poison out of him right now. She told me, it's okay. I will make sure you don't hurt. Sometime later, near a campfire, I sat down, dried up. Examining my arm, she said, your pulse is all right now. What a relief. I replied, yeah. She told me, but besides that, this is the first time I've ever thought about eating a demon. Showing her the cooked meat, I replied, well, it depends on the demon in question. But if you cook the snake right, it's good for your nutrition and vitality. She was eating the snake meat and said, I wish Master was here to try it too. Angrily, I thought, why is this brat thinking of Master even in this situation? I told her, let's follow the snake's trail after we're done with the meal. If we can track it, we might be able to find its lair. Under the moonlight, we finally found where the trail stops. I looked up and said, it leads right to that cave. She told me, there is a huge amount of spiritual energy coming from the cave. I asked, you can sense it? I looked at her worried face, thinking that it was such a great ability to have. She must have found this place because of it in her past life. We were walking inside the cave, and she was saying, I didn't know there was a place like this in Guangdong. Surely this isn't the divine altar from the legends. I replied, it's possible. The divine altar is where the Guangdong sect's ancestors cultivated. The Guangdong sect's best warrior, the sword master from 300 years ago, was rumored to have ascended to immortality in this cave. Licking my lips, I greedily thought, if this is the place, there must be many pills here that will be able to replenish my vitality. She ran towards some pills lying on the ground and said, Junior brother, look, this box of pills has fallen to the ground. I replied, the snake from earlier must have eaten these pills to gather its energy and become a demon. Then we stopped near a large house. On a table lay some books. She started examining the books and exclaimed, the techniques of the Guangdong sect were actually hidden here all along. Is this really where our ancestors cultivated? She wondered, is this really the legendary divine altar? I asked, did you find anything? She replied, I think I found some martial arts techniques. I can't believe we're so lucky. I exclaimed, good. Pointing my finger toward the cave, I told her, it looks like there are other hidden pathways in the cave, so I'll go take a look. She excitedly replied, yes, I want to explore the cave too. When she started heading toward the cave, I suddenly stopped, then started running and thought, there's no time to waste. I have to find the elixir before her. All the medicine in this cave should be mine. Then I saw something and stopped, thinking, as long as I can get to them 1 second sooner, I won't have to endure senior sister's harassment ever again. Before me was a pill floating near a rock. Saliva was dripping from my mouth as I thought, I must push my humiliating past behind me. With this, I'm 1 step closer to becoming the harem king. I was walking toward the pill and was about to touch it when, somewhere in the cave, Jean Y walked forward and found a bathhouse. She noticed some traces. Suddenly, she heard a scream and started running toward me, shouting, what's going on? She saw me lying near a pill, from which cold energy was emanating. Shocked, she exclaimed, that's Mitasungsu. I thought, Mitasungsu, it's an elixir formed over 1,000 years by gathering the energy of extreme yin. It's a rare medicine, but it contains such strong yin energy that it's harmful to vitality. She was concerned and asked, Junior, are you okay? I was startled, thinking something terrible had happened. Angrily, I thought, it is something terrible, you fool. It's almost a disaster for me. I was imagining myself in my previous life. If too much yin energy builds up in a man's body, even the body shape can start changing to resemble a woman. I was crying and thinking, if I consume Mitasunsu, I might lose all the size and vitality I've built up. She was worried and asked me, Junior, are you crying? Are you okay? I replied, no, these are tears of joy. I told her, Senior brother, this is undoubtedly the legendary Mitasunsu. With this amount, one person could awaken their vital energy and meridians. She was shocked when she heard me say, Senior brother, you should be the one to take this elixir. She said, me? No way. You were the one who found it first, Junior. I exclaimed in frustration, Mitasunsu is no better than trash to me. Sweetly, I replied, no, even if I take it, it would be a waste because I'm slow-witted. If we share it, the effect will be halved. So for efficiency's sake, it's better for you, as the one responsible for restoring the sect, to take it. She said, no, Junior should take Mitasunsu. Precisely because you're lacking in talent, you need the elixir. I believe I can ascend just through training. Blushing, she said, so it's only right for you to take it and stand alongside me. I was shocked when I heard that, and I thought, this stubborn, righteous kid, refusing even when it's being handed to him. She was calling my name, and I thought, then I'll make it so you have no choice but to take it. I grabbed her hand and told her, how about as a request from your younger brother? She was surprised, and I further added, I'm offering you the elixir out of respect for you as my elder brother. Why don't you understand that this is for your sake? She blushed, and with a trembling voice, she replied, then fine, I'll take it. I thought, seriously, when it comes to brotherhood, he can't resist. I told her, since Mitasunsu is a yin elixir, you'll need to use internal energy that aligns with the yin element. Didn't we recover anything on the basics of yin-based techniques? She replied, yes, there was the 3 yin true technique, right? I'll have to memorize the chants immediately. Then she handed me some books and started reading one of them. I nervously thought, look at the speed at which he's turning the pages. Truly the heavenly body. Is this it? At this level, he'll be able to absorb the elixir even without much help. She said, good. I've memorized it all. I replied, already? She walked toward the pill and took it in her hand. She thought, the Mitasunsu that Junior generously gave up for me. No matter what, I want to make it mine. She put the pill in her mouth, then suddenly grabbed her chest, thinking, it feels like my heart is freezing. She was trembling, and I called her, Senior brother. She fell to the ground, thinking, the energy is rampaging wildly inside my body. If this continues, I won't be able to control the energy. I was protecting my face from the wind and worriedly thought, the force of Mitasunsu is violently clashing with her internal energy. Could it be that the yin energy is too strong to control? The signs are really bad. Suddenly, Jinwei found herself floating in midair. It was inside her mind. She thought, I just consumed the elixir that Junior gave up for me. I have to make this energy mine quickly. Then she touched a strange substance, which turned into water and started drowning her. She found herself facing a little child who was killing crows with a stone. The little girl was thinking, that crow killed the entire family of sparrows, so I killed it too. Why are you blaming me? Do you know? She stopped and suddenly looked toward Jinwei and asked, why do people call you a monster? When Jinwei heard that, she was shocked. The little girl lunged toward her with a creepy expression. I was covering my face from the energy coming from Jinwei's body. I thought, even with the heavenly body technique, is she still lacking energy compared to Mitasunsu's force? So, the demon within you Jinwei found a weak spot in her mind and attacked. With you Jinwei's talent, I thought she'd be able to absorb the elixir without any problems. I can't believe even the great Yu Jinwei has an inner demon. I started running toward her and said, I hate unnecessary contact, so I wasn't going to use Jinjadoin. I held her in my arms and added, but I can't let a blue chip stock turn into worthless paper. I started releasing my energy into her body and said, get a hold of yourself, Senior brother. She heard my voice. While her inner demon was grabbing her neck, she called my name, Junior. I told her, you must seize control of the elixir's energy right now. She said, I want to, but the demon. I told her, chant the 3 yin true technique. Direct the yin energy through the points. Senior, listen to me. I shouted, if you don't focus, you might fall into a state of demonic deviation. With a surprised expression, I said, what powerful yin energy. But since it's Eugene Y, he can endure this much. If it were anyone else, they would have already become a shell of a person. I can't let my senior brother, who is destined to create my bright future and supposed to roll up his sleeves to help rebuild the sect, become a wreck. Consider yourself lucky, Eugene Y. because your junior has reached the level of an absolute master before. Her inner demon gripped her neck, and a red light glowed from its eyes as it said, "Tell me." Jean Y picked up a nearby stone and struck the inner demon with it. While the demon screamed, she started running away. As it chased her, she thought, the price of the power I've had since birth, the nature that always lurks, waiting to consume my weakened self. The demon swung a punch at her. She blocked it but was still thrown back, injured. As the demon approached her, she thought, am I really going to be consumed like this? So futile. Suddenly, she heard me say, "Don't give up, senior." Then she began to feel my energy across her whole body. She wondered, could it be that he's transferring energy from a distance? While transferring my energy, I said, "Get a grip, senior. You must not stop the flow of energy." As my hands and body slowly began to freeze, I told her, "Don't be deceived by the demon in front of you. What's important is to absorb the elixir." She faced the demon as I said, "I'll loosen your meridians somehow. It may be painful, but please create an opportunity for me." She thought, outside, the yin energy is overwhelming, and it must be a difficult situation. As the demon charged towards her, she got up, thinking, the junior is taking a risk to help me. She raised her fist and added, "I can't give up." She jumped forward, landing a punch on the demon, which was thrown back and crashed into some rocks. She thought, I have a rough idea of what Junior is trying to do. First, absorb the elixir's essence to replenish my internal energy and subdue the mind demon. She began meditating, thinking, if I sense a lack of internal energy while controlling the essence, and the mind demon opens its eyes, I just need to replenish that much internal energy. The demon rose from the rocks, its face mangled, and charged at Jean Y again. Outside, I was trying to give her as much energy as I could. Suddenly, a barrier formed, stopping the demon from reaching her. I told her, now's the time, senior. Philtrum point, center of the trunk point, and in intersection point. Blood began flowing from her mouth. Outside, I shouted, you mustn't stop there, break through the meridian. Suddenly, the demon broke through the barrier and rushed at her with sharp claws. She opened her eyes just as the demon's claws came near her face. Then, the demon was slammed into the ground and buried. As it tried to lift its head, a stone fell on it, crushing the demon, and it vanished. I sighed, thinking, the energy has calmed down. It seems she has successfully absorbed the elixir. I told her, well done, senior. Now, send the yin energy to the Philtrum point. The opening of the Ren and Du meridians is just around the corner. In her mind, she thought, Junior, are you really okay with just yielding? You've been this way since the beginning. You always think of me first. To become stronger, you train every day, yet you yield everything important to me. You always take care of me. I'm happy, and it's unfortunate. I hope you take care of yourself too. Thanks to you, I avoided becoming a wreck. I will never forget this grace. If I can repay this grace, even if the whole world becomes your enemy, I will always be on your side. I looked at her, saying, so you're already performing the 3-in true technique. Since it's the heavenly body, senior brother's tendons and meridians are different from an ordinary person. I got up and said, this is truly a hardship. It requires so much effort. Looking toward the empty space, I thought, but more importantly, is there really no other elixir? I recalled drinking an elixir in my previous life that made me sore, but it turned out to be Mitasungsu. As Jean Y's large chest came into view and said, so that's why I avoided women like the plague in my previous life. It's already an issue, but the overwhelming yin energy might have worsened my complex. In any case, I felt bad for putting myself through all this trouble. Then I noticed a bush near a large stone and said, is there moss growing even in this yin energy? What is this? I thought it was just a weed. The yang energy surrounding the moss and its lush growth caught my attention. I smiled and said, it's Hongdiangdi. It's a tier lower than Mitasungsu, but Hongdiangdi is also a wonderful herb. I paused, realizing with a shocked expression what it was. I jumped for joy, shouting, right, that makes sense. Mugayak didn't just leave Mitasungsu without alternatives. I grabbed a piece of it and put it in my mouth, thinking, this is how you monopolize after reincarnation. I started meditating and thought, now, shall I begin my journey of luck? Normally, it's common to gather the essence of the elixir in the lower dantian and transform it into internal energy, but I'll spread the energy of Hongdiangdi throughout my body and absorb it. I tried to keep myself steady, thinking, when the body becomes healthier, vitality will improve too. As I meditated intensely, sweat dripped from my body, and I thought, come forth, energy of a man. It's been so long since I felt genuine yang energy. I released a wave of energy and added, it's not as strong as Mitasungsu. Then I opened my eyes, thinking, but now, I've also gained a body that doesn't get sick. This is a good outcome. I got up and looked around, Noticing Jean Y was no longer there, I said, "Looks like Eugene Y went to wash up after finishing his energy work." I smelled myself and added, "I feel gross, should I go wash up too?" This is where Mugaic lived, so there should be a bathhouse. A pair of clothes lay folded nearby, and a girl entered the hot spring, saying, "It feels good." She was shocked when she heard me say, "Senior brother, are you taking a bath?" Nervously, she replied, "Yeah, Junior, you can't come in." I responded, "I'll wait." Water dripped down her face as she said, "It's a good thing." Then she covered herself with her hands and added, "I can't let you see me in such an embarrassing state." Sometime later, with a flushed face, she said, "I almost got caught by my junior brother for being a woman. Having lived my whole life disguised as a man, I still find myself flustered in these situations." She thought, "My master always said that in the martial world, I must live as a man to avoid being looked down upon and to face fewer hardships." With a confident face, she clenched her fist and said, "Anyway, it was dangerous, but I'm really lucky to have taken the elixir. If it weren't for Junior, I might have ended up crippled." It's hard to believe someone this kind is Junior. Not only did he give me a priceless elixir without hesitation, but he also never resented me for my lack of talent in martial arts. She added, "I too want to do something for Junior." She looked at the water where her reflection was visible. Blushing, she submerged her face in the water, thinking, "Why am I feeling like this? Just thinking about him makes my heart race. I want to always be there for him, to help him so he doesn't face hardships, to be with him." She covered her face with her hands, then got up from the water and silently looked down, thinking, "What are you thinking? Have you gone mad, Eugene Y?" She started putting on her clothes while thinking, "Junior is like a sibling to you, nothing more. You can't allow yourself to feel more than that." She added, "These feelings are merely brotherly affection. Let's stop this foolish imagining right now." Rebuilding the sect, taking care of it, and standing by Junior's side. I can't do any of that in the fragile body of a woman. I have to be a man. I was waiting outside, thinking, taking a bath takes a long time. Isn't it supposed to be a 5-minute job for a perfectly healthy man? Of course, I tend to wash thoroughly because I know women dislike it. Still, this place is unexpectedly spacious. The luminous pearls embedded everywhere speak of the former wealth of the Gongdong sect. Who could have imagined that the sect that produced Mugukja, the greatest swordmaster under heaven, would fall into such decline? According to records from my previous life, 50 years ago, after the massacre at Gongdong, only one survivor remained. He was Lim Bexian, the wielder of the heavenly thunder sword. Lim Bexian survived because he was confined in a meditation cell, punished for misconduct at the time. But even he wasn't highly skilled in martial arts. Most of the important martial texts were lost when the sect's library burned down, and so, the rise of the Gongdong sect ended. Before he died, Lim Bexian took on only one disciple, the current head of the Gongdong sect, Zhang Yang, known as the demon-slaying swordsman. Zhang Yang's title may sound impressive, but everyone knows it's used mockingly in this era. The name demon-slaying swordsman was given by the demon sect faction, Sa Hui, who are constantly eyeing the remnants of the Gongdong sect. They coined that name to mock the sect for losing its demon-slaying sword techniques. That's why the martial texts we recovered are such an important find. I further added, Mugukja may not have created this place with the future in mind, but from the Gongdong sect's perspective, it's nothing short of a heaven-sent blessing. If the legend is true that Mugukja erased all records of the Guangxiang blood cave to keep it hidden, it makes sense why the demon sect never found it. I worriedly said, "But something seems odd. Why would Mugukja erase the records of such a sacred place? Was it merely for hiding?" Anyone from the Gongdong sect back then could have found the sacred place with their eyes closed. It's absurd to think he foresaw the sect's decline before the demon sect invasion. But one thing is certain, this sacred place was erased from history by Mugukja's will alone. And there's something else strange. In my previous life, after obtaining the elixir, I came back here for secluded training, but by then, the cave entrance had already collapsed. I further thought, but now, this place is in perfect condition, without a single crumbled area. It looks like it could last for decades. Could it be that the Guangxiang blood cave's collapse in my previous life wasn't natural? She called me, Junior, and asked, "Have you been waiting long?" She smiled and added, "Junior, hurry and wash yourself." I looked towards her, thinking, is it the effect of the Midas Jiangsu? But his face seems more beautiful than usual. I cursed under my breath, then punched my face. She was confused and shouted, "Junior, what are you doing?" Blood coming from my nose. I replied, "Nothing, I just needed to clear my head." Worriedly, she said, "Okay." I took off my clothes and got into the hot spring, thinking, Eugene, why is that guy getting more handsome by the day? What is this? Could the scent of flowers be part of his meticulous grooming? I further added, what's the point of wearing fragrance pouches when his face looks like a squid? I was looking down, then suddenly I splashed the water and shouted, that walking demon spawn. Sometime later, I walked out from the hot spring, wiping my face. I looked towards Jinwei and asked, Senior, what are you doing? She replied, you're done washing already? I was just organizing the martial texts we recovered. I thought, it seems like once we return to the main sect, the Gongdong sect will have regained some of its lost arts. So far, we've only had the hard Yang Qi technique, the method of greater Yang, but now that we've discovered the foundational Yin techniques, the 3 Yin True technique, we've recovered all the internal Qi techniques. Once the method of greater Yang and the 3 Yin True technique reach their peak, one can step into the more advanced realm of the unified primordial Qi technique. I further thought, but, of course, the unified primordial Qi technique isn't here. There should be 8 martial texts in total, including the demon-slaying sword technique. I searched through the books and asked, Senior, is this really the end? There are only 7 texts. She nodded and said, yes, I searched everywhere, and there are only 7. Shocked, I asked, what about the demon-slaying sword technique? Wasn't it there? She replied, no. I thought, how could this be? In my previous life, Senior definitely found the demon-slaying sword technique here. There's no way the information from the Eastern faction is wrong. I looked towards her, thinking, so that means the sword master Mugukja didn't leave the demon-slaying sword technique as a written text. I further thought, this isn't unheard of. There are many ways for a master to pass down martial arts without writing. But, Mugukja, who had reached the transcendence of life and death, might have left behind his sword technique in some other manner. She excitedly told me, I found some sword marks beyond the bath. Intrigued, I asked, sword marks? She immediately started running, saying, let me show you. As we moved, I questioned, couldn't they just be random scratches on the rock? She assured me, you'll understand when you see them, Junior. We finally stopped near a massive wall, and she added, because those marks are eerily beautiful. I touched the wall and said, Junior, there's something real beyond this wall. It's likely a mechanical device from 300 years ago, operated by force. We only have one chance. Too much or too little force and everything collapses. We must be careful. Nervously, she responded, if you can't execute the demon-slaying sword technique, the wall might not open. I replied, maybe, but don't worry. There will be a way. I thought to myself, I'm not completely ignorant of the demon-slaying sword technique. The non-aggression pact between the imperial family and martial artists isn't sustained by loyalty alone. The imperial palace always monitors martial artists, acquiring secret techniques from famous sects to keep them in check. The Gongdong sect's demon-slaying sword technique is famous enough to be stored in the palace armory. That's how I knew the marks on this wall were from the celestial being's sword technique. Whatever lies beyond this wall must be the real arrangement left by the celestial sword lord. Starting to walk forward, she called my name, and I thought, every martial art has a stepping technique. Everything in this place is a clue from the celestial sword lord. I started moving, jumping from place to place. Jinwei followed and asked, what are you doing right now? Then, surprised, he realized, this is a stepping technique. The sword marks on the ground are guiding us. Junior is following the marks, heading to where the stepping technique first began. I stopped near a hidden wall covered in vines. Slashing my sword across the wall, I called, Senior brother, showing her the deep cuts on the wall. I asked, can you decipher it? The secrets of the demon-slaying sword technique, carved into the stone wall by the celestial sword lord, were so difficult that it took us 2 days just to interpret them. Jinwei quickly realized that the lightning-shaped marks indicated that the technique began on the opposite side. We put our heads together, using all the secret techniques of the Gongdong sect and my memory, to reverse calculate the correct incantation. As she swung her sword, she asked, isn't it better to swing it like this? Pointing out the mistake, I said, if you do, the angle will be off, and it won't work. Frustrated, I thought, when I had to correct even Jinwei's sword stance, I clenched my teeth so hard that I thought my jaw would break. I had imagined my first physical contact in this life would be a sword lesson with a beautiful woman, but how much of my first experiences has Jinwei stolen from me? When we were hungry, we survived on wall grain pills, and when we were thirsty, we sipped from the valley stream. Finally, when we succeeded in reverse calculating the demon-slaying sword technique, I almost hugged Jinwei, forgetting he was a man. She walked forward, looking at her sword, and said, now all that's left is to use the demon-slaying sword technique on the stone wall engraved with lightning. I nodded and replied, Yes, this is something only you can do, senior brother. Worriedly, she asked, are you sure I can do it? To be honest, I'm not confident since I can't use the celestial force art. The demon-slaying sword technique can't be properly executed. I told her, well, this probably won't work, and she looked shocked. I explained, of course, the sword marks of the demon-slaying sword technique engraved on the wall seem like clues for someone who has mastered the technique to its peak. I added, it probably wasn't meant for us. If you weren't born with the celestial martial body, senior brother, restoring the demon-slaying sword technique would have been impossible. She asked, but is there really no sure way to open the stone wall? Touching the wall, I replied, don't worry, senior brother. It's not like there's no way at all. I thought, no matter how impressive the mechanical device is, it's 300 years old. By now, it's vulnerable compared to the past. I began channeling my mana through the wall, thinking, I was once the head of the Imperial Intelligence Organization. When it comes to manipulating mechanical devices, I'm second to none in the world. Originally, the sharp sword energy of the demon-slaying sword technique should have unlocked the device, but I opened the lock and added, because the technology is old, the non-essential parts of the mechanism can't distinguish between sword energy and my sensitivity. The door slowly started to open. I explained, by using this, I can open the door without fully mastering the demon-slaying sword technique. I looked at her and said, it's done, senior brother. Nervously, she looked at me, and I said, let's go. She gripped her sword tightly and stood silently with her eyes closed. As she opened her eyes and walked forward, she thought, what Eugene Y can't do, I will. What I can't do, Eugene Y will do. I looked at her confidently and thought, don't worry, Eugene Y. You're different from the past versions of yourself now. She ran forward, using the foot technique I showed her, heading toward the wall. She screamed and slashed her sword at the wall, creating a large wave of water. I added, because I've made it so. She looked at the partially destroyed wall, overjoyed, grabbing my hands and shouting, Junior, the stone wall has opened. You're amazing. She added, this proves that the restored demon-slaying sword technique was correct. We've reclaimed the secret techniques of the Gongdong sect. Smiling, she thanked me. Nervously, I replied, but it's too early to celebrate. We still need to see what the celestial sword lord has left behind. We both looked ahead. I nodded toward her, and we walked forward. I suddenly opened my eyes, bound to a pillar, confused, wondering when I had fallen asleep. The ceiling looked strangely familiar. I noticed an old man talking to someone else about selling me to the palace. When they both looked my way, I realized, horrified, that it was Wang Sam, the one who betrayed me, and the Imperial Palace broker, Zhang Haiyan. I understood that the moment I opened the mechanical device, I had fallen into an illusion. I had expected something beyond the sealed stone wall, but instead, I was shown this cruel hallucination. Furious, with veins pulsing in my face, I thought to myself, I'll make you pay for this, Celestial Sword Lord.